Really, offline editors have it easy in comparison to, colorists who have to know all the color science, and audio people who have to not only understand how to do the mix, but also how the physics of their room interacts with everything. It's just, there's a lot there. So, cool. So I just need a little bit of a clonk as this is picked up. And I'm actually okay with this. Maybe I'll drop this by 1 semitone and see what happens. Because there's a little bit of a change in quality of room tone here, but I think I can get past that with a pitch shift this time. Okay, a bit too much. Cool. Let's clean that up. Okay, let's not skip ahead any further than we need to. I'll bring that down to a VFX track and make it stereo in a second. So, this kind of weight being lifted off the rack. Let's see if we can find a little clonk or something. I think that's a nice one. And we're going to put that... Right, so grab and lift. And I'll leave that to about there and trim it. Let's see what we got. Cool. I just need to bring that down. Cool. That's nice, and I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to say, as a basic attempt to sound design this little montage here, we've done quite a lot of work there, although it is a basic version of what that should be. So we will call it on the montage. Now I just want to take a look at this last little bit of the edit here, and maybe we can fill out the soundscape with another bit of recording that we've got. So let's just look at what we have here. Let's just listen. So there's quite a lot. Of audio going on in there. So I wonder if we can make like a third track of that, or let's see what we can do if we fill out our third soundscape track with like a proper recording. So let's go and look at soundscape. So I've got the boxing gym here. And obviously that's going to be really, really loud. But if we bring it right down, and we really, really need to bring it right down because it stays very audible. So we do get something out of that. Maybe I don't quite like the punching bag noises that come out of it. Now there's kind of a lot of stamping and jumping around, which I don't quite like. So let's see if we can make something out of the room tone here. So I think I probably need to replace the noise he's making there. There's a little kind of breathing noise, but it's going to get in the way of the room tone. So maybe let's just take a look at what we've got. And I can split it there with a blade. And let's just take this down into our final track and see what we can do with it. So I'm going to have to fake stereo again, and I do want to bring it right down. So again, it just adds an extra little layer of sound, a little layer of presence. So let's just see, let's go back to the start of the edit and see how this stacks up with everything else. Maybe I can... So that's working for me, more or less. I think what I might do is just drop it very slight, and I might just drop the pitch, see what happens. Cool, just lowering it a little bit like that and lowering the volume helps it all kind of blend in the background. So that's now adding just an extra little layer of unification, a little extra layer of background interest orally back here. So we're going to do our trick again, crossfade. I think a default crossfade is okay. Now I might have jumped the gun there because okay, I can just about hear Wayne breathing on that one if I solo it. So I'm going to activate trim mode, and what I want to do is I want to select all of these edits, but I want to control or command select that one. Now I'm going to hit U until I select only the left hand side of these edit points. And also what I want to do is hit the lock on every single other track before I do this. Because if I trim, which is what I'm going to do, if I trim around with my nudge keys, I will move everything around. So I want to make sure I've locked every other track, otherwise I'm going to start shifting everything around up here and everything is going to fall out of sync. Complete disaster. I have multiple left side edit points selected. If I now nudge left, and it does ripple the markers, which is a bit annoying, but I can correct those later on. I'm going to nudge these back until I lose the sound of Wayne breathing. And then I'm going to go back to the standard one. I'm going to undo all of the locks here. So I'm then going to finish this off with a few more copy pastes. Oh, you know what? I'll just paste in and drag back. And then we'll trim this back in, and then I'm going to do my other trick and just paste my transition onto everything else, and now I should have some reasonably okay room tone and a bit of a soundtrack back there that fills in with some audio. So let's just listen to this and see what we think.
Come on, Wayne, maintain the tempo. Let's make that flabbiness fabulous.
Okay, that appeared to come in a little bit late this time. Oh, okay. What's happened? Oh, I must have nudged my... Okay, I appear to have misplaced that whoosh, which was a bit odd. I can't remember when I did that. Let's just put that back. Okay, cool. Now I've had a little bit of an audio gaff there. I just want to go through and make sure that my dialogue is in fact still in sync, because that could be an issue if I accidentally shifted something else around. So let's just take a look here.
I don't know you.
Okay, no, that's fine. Cool, so I'm actually quite happy with that. We need to add an extra little bit of breathing here, but one thing I did notice was that this take had some quite good breathing. So I can probably take a breath from here and use it later on to fill this out. Because otherwise we cut straight into a lot more background noise. So let's get rid of that, and we need to find an extra little bit of breathing noise just to sell this. And I think I quite like a kind of maybe a slight groan and a breath. Let's just take a look at the different takes we have and see if we can find that. It may be that we can't, but let's take a look anyway. So let's go back to that weightlifting shot again, and we'll open it up in the media pool. We right click and choose find in media pool. I'm going to close my effects library. Let's take a look for a little bit of a groan, and I might take just like one breath or something out of this shot and stitch it in over here to sell this, because when it's completely silent, it's just a little bit odd, so we just need something to fill this out. I'm going to close my inspector and take a look. Not a series of sounds to be taken out of context. That's an alright one. Let's see if we can make something out of this. So let's zoom in and let's see if we can sync this up. So nah, that doesn't look right. I like the little sharp breath, but I need something that's... It's got to be much shorter than that. So back to the drawing board. Let's try a different... Okay, there's a little bit of a groan there. Let's see if this works. Okay, I think there may be capability in that. Although quite what capability Brown has to do with video editing or audio editing is beyond me. Let's change my clip speed and slow this down. Keep pitch correction on and see if we slow it down a bit. Okay, and let's shift the pitch. Maybe this will work, who knows? Okay. And I want to take the volume way down. This one I want to be quite quiet because it's just kind of there. Maybe that works. Let's see if the breathing, because it's a different kind of groan, so maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe the breathing from this shot is a better one.
Come on, Wayne, maintain the tempo. Let's make that flabbiness fabulous.
So let's... Okay. Let's see what we can do. Maybe the breathing works. So I'll take that out of the way. I'll actually tell you what I'll do. Is I'm going to shift that down one track for now, and then I'm just going to hit the letter D, which will disable it. And then I want to bring this in and see if I get anything out of this. So there's a bit of a breath in there. I tell you what, maybe that groan better fits this little action here. Okay, let's see what this is like. Again, it's not perfect, but it just nicely fills out this shot. Let's see what we've got. Okay, that I need to bring down just a little bit more. And maybe I can extend the breathing. No, okay, fine. Maybe I can extend it backwards though. Okay, nope, fine. Okay, cool. I actually quite like that. That's okay. Again, proper sound specialist could expand on what we've done there, but that just helps kind of sell that he's there, and it hides the fact that there's a lot of silence there, so... Or maybe, let's just take a look at extending this breathing. No, different kind of breathing, okay. Cool. Maybe that's not ideal, maybe there's a different bit of sound we can use, or maybe we just get rid of that at some point, who knows, but I'll leave that there for now. Can think about that a little bit later. But now we've pretty much got the first scene under wraps in terms of audio. Again, we'd show this to a client, we'd show this to a director, they'd have a good idea of where it could go, then we would hand this over to an audio specialist who would finish the job. So let's just watch this scene through and see what we think.
Come on, Wayne, maintain the tempo. Let's make that flabbiness fabulous.
Okay, maybe that works. Two things stuck out. A, this was a bit quiet. That's better. B, maybe it's just the timing here. No, I don't really like that. Okay, cool. I'm happy with that. Maybe we can think about that a bit later, or maybe not. We'll see what happens. Cool. So I am happy with the sound design for the first scene. We've done quite a lot here. Like, there's a lot going on down here. There's a lot going on in this montage, and we've done a lot of work to try and stitch all of this together and hide the joins. Like I said, there are rough edges. It's our first sound design exercise, so you know it's going to have rough edges. This is an introduction to audio in Resolve. So in the next one, we're going to move on to the second scene. And the second scene has a few more of those little montagey bits, but also there's a bit of quite a good bit of soundscape that we can use here as well. So click on through to the next lecture once you're ready. Okay, so we're getting very close to finishing our proper edit. Basically, we're getting very close, so we just need to continue. We've now got sound design and audio for the second scene. Now, it's a longer scene, so it's going to take us a bit longer to do this, but it will progress at a faster pace because we have a pretty solid idea of what we're doing now. So the first thing I really need to think about is this scene transition. Because we've got a reasonably okay soundscape back here, and then we have a very hard cut here. Now, when we're working with scene transitions, a nice basic technique to use is basically a giant J-cut. Basically, the audio from the next scene starts playing well before we see the next scene, and that kind of primes us and gets us ready for the cut to the new location or the new part of the story or whatever is happening. This kind of giant audio J-cut is a very common technique in American broadcast. Like, watch out for it. In legal dramas, it's very common. What you might actually hear is a character talking for a good 5 or 6 seconds before you actually see them, and then it will cut into them mid-conversation with somebody else. Or maybe you can start to hear like muffled traffic noise and air conditioners and things in a flat, and then there'll be like a clinking noise, and then suddenly you're cutting to someone pouring whiskey into a glass or something. So we can use audio to make a nicer transition between scenes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a J-cut down here, and I think I'm probably going to fade out the machine hum into this track. So I'm going to drag the machine hum back a little bit, and now in the audio folder for scene 2 I have imported all of the audio effects that I've found, and I'm going to take a look at my soundscape folder. So hopefully you've gone and obviously found your own materials by now, otherwise you will struggle to follow along. But I've got a few different recordings. I've got outdoor ambience. And I want to be careful about big spikes, big loud sounds like this. They tend to be somewhat distracting in a soundscape. I tend to want my soundscape to be a more kind of general unifying texture. I don't necessarily want everything to be kind of super clear and super kind of discrete audio. I want everything to kind of blend together just to give us that sense of location. So things like this we don't want. Okay, the sirens there could be useful later on, but I have another recording. I've got this one. And that's got a nice ready-made blend of natural sounds out here already. It's got birdsong, it's got planes and traffic in the background. So this is a green in London, right? So we're going to get all of the city noises in the background anyway, but they're not going to be super clear. So I am going... Oops. To get a big chunk of this, and then what I want to do is I want to patch it into this track down here, and I want to use an overwrite, not an insert. Otherwise, if I use an insert, then this will happen, which I do not want. So it's F10 for overwrite. And I want to make it quite quiet, as I did last time. Cool, and that's just about there, so I like that. And then I'm going to put a 3 decibel fade between these two, so that way we will begin to hear this exterior park noise before we actually cut to this location. So I want to go into my effects library and 3 decibel crossfade. And then we start to get this bit of ambient noise out here before we see the actual visual transition, and I think that helps the two scenes cut together more nicely. So I just need to do a little bit of fading work on here. Try and hide the edges a little bit, because there is some natural room tone in there. I do want the noise of the jelly beans hitting the ground, and I do want the noise of him running away. We might go and try and find some footstep recordings, although I'm warning you, getting separately recorded footsteps to sync up is quite difficult unless you actually do it in a Foley studio and time everything correctly. Okay, I think I just want a longer fade on that, like a really long fade to help hide that. Okay, I think I'll lose the footsteps down there, so I might just have to compromise. And what we'll do later on, we'll take a look at getting a room a room tone or a background tone sample from another rush and playing it through underneath. But before we commit to that, let's take a look at some other stuff and see what we think about the room tone going forwards. So let's move forwards. We've got this bit here, which is a bit weird because he moves forward and he's completely silent. So let's fix that. I'm going to close my effects library. I've made a bin called coat here, and I've put everything, pertaining clothes movements and coats and things in here. If you've gone ahead and found the same kind of effects, then you can do the same. I would recommend at least some clothing movement in this, because apart from anything else, the trench coat opening is a bit tinny and plasticky because it's only on a radio mic. So let's see what we've got. I've got this here, which is a recording of clothes scraping together as someone moves. So I've got my IO already. I'm going to bring that down into a VFX track. And let's just mute that for the second. And this is where he begins to move, so I'm going to line it up there. Now, clothes recordings they sound awful to begin with. They're always way too loud. That one's also mono, so let me fake that to stereo. Way too loud and also too quick. So first off, I'm going to really pull the volume down on this one. I'm going to go for like -40 and see what that's like, because I only want this to be barely audible. And that does help this here. Now I want to fade this in a little bit.
Hi there.
And that fade, that kind of downwards curve there, it just helps hide that, and it makes the whole thing sound like a bit of a shirt movement when we get closer.
Hi there.
So that does help. I'm going to trim that back, and I'm going to fade that in. I'm going to put the curve up there to compensate. And I'm also going to slow this down. I'm probably going to have to change that fade as well. So I'm going to slow this down to about 85%.
Hi there.
I don't know you.
Sorry, it's Wayne.
Move along, mate.
No, I just want some. I just want some.
Cool. So again, we've got some quite serious location tones, some kind of wind noise issues there that we can't necessarily fix during this exercise, and just using the tools that we have covered so far. So we will just have to make do the best we can here, but it will be presentable. It will be something that we could show a client or a director before we hand over to the audio specialist. So let's keep going. So let's take a look at what we've got and let's see if we can land on a background tone to help flesh out our background.
Hi there.
I don't know you.
Sorry, it's Wayne.
Move along, mate.
Now, we've got quite a severe tone back there, so let's see if I can find this clip in the media pool. Okay, so I've done quite a bit of searching around for a decent room tone, which I've cut out of this demonstration because I was looking for about 10 minutes, and we're just going to go in and get the room tone in there. So what I've decided to do in the end is to use this shot here, and I can bring the room tone in it up. So I'm going to find the media, find in media pool there.
What's
What you after?
raw?
Now that crackling should be on the dealer's radio mic. So, and that looks like the case. Let's get rid of that. Fake the stereo. Cool, so there's a nice bit of tone in there. I'm going to trim it down both ways.
Sorry, it's Wayne.
Move along, mate.
No,
Cool, and then I will put that back and I will loop this across. Maybe bring it down a smidge as well, just to help kind of fill out the soundscape that we're building. Get rid of that lingering transition there and put a new one on. And then we will do our usual thing of trying to fill this out as best we can with what we've got. We'll put a 3 fade on there, copy it, then go ahead and select all the other edit points and just paste it on like that. So let's see what we've got.
hi there.
I mean, we still get these tone issues, but like I said, we can't completely fix those this
I don't
time.
know you.
So we'll just have to deal with that.
Sorry, it's Wayne.
Move along, mate.
No, I just want some
I can't help you.
please. I just need something to keep me going.
Cool, so that is acceptable for now. What we'll do is we'll copy and paste this over, and we'll just get those kind of bits of tone going to the end of the scene. Of course. Then I'll just paste the transitions back over as well. What's going on there? Ah, they're not actually touching, fair enough. There we go, and then I'll just paste the same transition onto all the edit points down here as well, and then we've got our kind of background tone stroke soundscape for this scene. So like I said, I'm not going to fixate too much on fixing all of these problems up here. That's not what Offliner does, and it's not something that we can do right now, so I'm going to maybe add a few extra little bits of detail down here, but now what I'm really focusing on is any remaining sound design that I want to do up here. So I think we are now at the first
Something to keep me going.
montage. So we've got everything we need up here. Let's go back to my montage folder or bin and let's see what we've got. So first I want to put the 3 whooshes down. We've got 3 whoosh cuts, 1, 2, 3. Maybe I'll go back to my whooshes folder here and Okay, I like this. So what we're going to do this time, the first time we had it going higher each time, this time we're going to start high and bring it low with every whoosh. And I like these last 3 that I've got, but you might have to play around with pitch on your end if you're going to do that. So and so let's see what we think of these 3. Cool, that one seems a little bit slow, so I'm going to bring it back. Cool. So we've got the 3 whooshes in here. I am going to normalize them all. I'm going to do peak sample. I probably want target level about -14 here. No, too low. Let's say -10. Cool. So I've got the whooshes in place. Then the next thing I want to do is I need the zipper, which is going to be in my montage bin up here. I need him pulling the wallet out of the bag, and then I need the paper money being unfurled. So let's take a look at the zipper first. So I've got a zipper noise here. Bit too slow. Maybe for the next one. So I like this one, so let's take a look. And it's a little bit on the slow side. Also mono. Cool, so I just need to speed that up a little bit. And I need to bring it down. And then I need to probably speed this up again. There we go. So I quite like that there. So the next one is him pulling the wallet out of the bag. Okay, so we're So what I've got, I think in the coat, but I've also got here, I've got some items being jangled around in kind of like a makeup bag, which will add a nice bit of depth to this as it happens. But also in the coat, I've got the noise of him, something of a hand being pulled out of a coat pocket. So that will work as well. So I'm going to put this down here first. And I want to speed that up. I want to speed it up from here because that's correct. Maybe 150% on this one. There we go. Now it's a little bit high and a bit too loud, so I'm going to drop the pitch a little bit, and I'm going to bring the volume down. Still just a little bit on the loud side. Cool. And then I'm going to bring down the makeup bag jangling around as well. So I probably don't want all of that. Let's put an out point in there. And I want it to line up with when he's pulling it out of the bag as well, because as he's pulling the wallet out, he's going to be jangling around and mixing around the contents of the bag. And I want to make it quite quiet. Cool. So I quite like that now. We've got Zip pulling the wallet out the bag, and the last thing we need is just the sound of some paper money unfolding. And I've got exactly that here. And this is quite a nice one, so let's just find the point where he unfurls it. That's when it starts. Cool. So that just needs to be brought down. Cool, I quite like that, so let's take a look at this. Cool. Okay, so I think that's coming together reasonably well. And now we can move on. Right, so we've now got this.
What are you after?
So we've got quite a big room tone issue in there. Let's just see if we can try and smooth that out a bit, because that's all we can do for now.
What are you after?
It's still quite obvious, but we can't really do much more. We could try trimming it in.
What are you after?
That's less noticeable, so that helps. And then what we'll... Okay, fine. So what we'll do is we will fade these out as well.
What are you after?
Okay, so here is a bit of sound design we need. We need the coat noise when she's opening up the coat. So I've got a few different bits here. I've got someone opening a coat. We've used that before. We've got someone kind of dusting up and moving a duvet around. I like that. I think if we slow that down, that'll work, or a sound similar, depending on what you've found for yourself. So I'm going to drag that down here. And it starts about there, this noise. So I'm going to change its speed. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, if I retime that, it doesn't seem to work that well. And it needs to be quite quiet. Or we could try a different one. Okay, so I like that first bit there. So let's see if this is any better. So what I'll do is I'll just deactivate that for now. Okay, I think that's much better. So let's get rid of that one. Perfect. And I might just add a little sharp fade in the end there, trying to hide the fact that we have cut a sound off midway. Perfect. I think that's really good. So, cool. And that's also naturally stereo, which is better. Okay, cool. So I quite like that. I think that's all right. So let's keep going. Okay, I'm going to trim that out and pull the fader in.
I've got gummy bears, Skittles, Chewits, Jelly Babies, and I've even got some original Opal Fruits.
Do you have anything raw?
So let's see what I might do. I might just drag this. Oh, what am I doing? Drag this forwards a bit and add a 3 dB fade there. See if that helps hide the transition.
Jelly Babies, and I've even got some original Opal Fruits.
Do you have anything raw?
That just needs a bit of a fade out there.
Raw.
Cool. So this is taking shape. It's a reasonably good first pass for a sound mix, and it's a good bit of introduction. So let's keep going. Where are we? There.
Maybe. It'll cost you.
Okay, so we've got our second montage, so let's go in and do that. So, get rid of our transitions and go back to our whooshes. Okay, I like these two, but there's one that's kind of heavier. There we go. I like that as a final one. So I'm going to bring that into number 3. I like that. That can be number 2. Let's see if it sounds right. Okay, let's switch these around. There we go, so it's getting higher and higher each time. Okay. That's timed up, and then I'll normalize these 3 to -10 again. Cool. And then we just want to do the exact same stuff that we did before. Now, we could copy and paste the sound effects from last time. I'm going to do that for the wallet, but I'm not going to do that for the other two. I'm going to use a different sample of the zip and a different sample for the money unfurling, just so we can tell if audio effects are recycled. We can kind of hide it a little bit if we surround them by some other new things, but we just don't want to push too hard what we can get away with. So having said that, this is much better fit for that action, so I might just have to pitch shift this a little bit to disguise the fact that it is in fact the same effect. So okay, let's also cheat the stereo. And I'm going to increase the pitch slightly to try and hide the fact that we're reusing the same thing. It's pretty much in sync, so let's just check this again. There we go. Cool, I might just bring it down a little bit. Cool, there we go. And cool, and then I've got the paper money. Let's just check which one we used last time. Movement 01, okay, cool, so we'll use the other paper money movement this time. That's a little bit high, so I'll just drop the pitch slightly. Cool. So let's listen to that. Cool, so I'm gonna put these two back and fade them both in.
It's warm.
Wayne! Don't do it!
Okay, so the rest of this is all right. There are, we could, if we wanted to, we could go and search out more Foley, more sound effects, and kind of, you know, replace the running in that. But it depends on whether or not you want to go that far. One thing I think I want to do is take a little bit of extra room tone from these takes and just stitch the trainer's dialogue together a little bit more, because there's.
Wayne! Don't do it!
Yeah. So let's find this in the media pool.
I'm too far away. Away.
Cool. And what I'll do is I'll just give that a fade in to match. And I will be a bit naughty and leave this in one of my effects tracks for now, because I don't need any more sound effects.
Wayne!
In actual fact, what I might do is be a little bit more targeted. Just see if I can hide the joins a little bit.
Don't do it!
Cool, so that just plugs that little silence gap quite nicely there.
Wayne! Don't do it! It isn't worth it, Wayne. What about all your hard work?
Cool, so we're almost there. I think I just want to do the other trick here. I want this to fade in.
isn't worth it, Wayne.
And then I just want to take another bit of room tone and stitch these two takes together just like I did last time. And then we will take a look at the third scene. So, as I've said probably hundreds of times by now, it's not a perfect sound edit, but that's not the point here. This is our kind of introduction to audio in the edit. So we're getting close. Let me just plug this with a little bit of room tone, and then we should be done for the second scene. To a kind of first pass standard, but that is as far as we're going to take it in this particular project. So let's find that one and let's get some decent background noise off of it. In fact, I can probably use the same bit of room tone I used before, so let's see if we can cheat that.
Wayne.
No, that's different, so let's find... Oh, mind you, they have completely different volume settings, don't they? So maybe if I just put that up to 3.5...
Wayne. What about all your... Wayne. What
Okay, maybe that's the wrong take. I'll try it from this one.
You've got it all the way. Worth it, Wayne. What about all your...
Cool, so that does quite a nice job of hiding the little gap there. So with that, I'd say our kind of first sound design is pretty much done for the second scene. One thing we might want to do is add a little bit more depth to our soundscape with maybe police sirens. We could put dogs barking in the background, or maybe we could pan a plane flyover. So I'll just do that before we go. I'll do a plane flyby or flyover. So where's the jet plane? So let's find a place in here where it's not going to interrupt with too much other sound, and I'll bring that down. And what I want is to bring the volume right down. It's going to be very, very kind of background. And I'll drop the pitch a bit as well. Okay, cool. So that blends in reasonably well. First things first, I'm going to fade it in and I'm going to fade it out so it does sound like it's actually getting closer and further away. And I might just have to drag that out and lengthen out the fade because planes do take a few seconds to fly by. And now what I want to do is I want to keyframe the pan. So I'm going to place an orange diamond in here and I want it to go from right to left. I'm going to start pan 100 right, and then by the end I'm going to place another keyframe and pan minus 100 to the left. So that plane is now flying over from the right to the left during this bit of the film.
Where you are?
Cool. And it might be that I need to actually stretch this out even more and stretch out the fades.
What are you after?
Cool, so that works quite well. So there's space to go through and do little bits like that as well, should you want to, but I think we're pretty much there for the basics. Right now we could hand this over to a specialist and they'd be able to make a much better job of it, but this would at least give some direction. It would at least kind of, you could show this to a director, you could show this to the client, and they could say, yeah, we like the direction that this is going in. So we're pretty much there for the second scene. In the next lecture, we're going to finish off the third and final scene and maybe go back and take another look at everything, see if there's anything else that we can fix. But other than that, that will be it. So click on through to the next lecture once you're ready. Okay, so we're at the more or less the final hurdle. We've got a bit of text and titling, and then we've got some lectures on handing over to other people in the pipeline coming next. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's finish this off. Now, this last bit won't take too long. There's really just a little bit of room tone work and a bit of a background noise thing going on here, because there's only one bit of dialogue otherwise. This was a terrible location for audio, and like real cafes always are. Hard surfaces, hard walls, lots of echoes, machinery churning away in the background all the time. So this is not a great location, which means we're going to have to build most of this background up ourselves. But that will be relatively simple. What I am going to do is I'm going to do another simple audio J-cut to help these two scenes transition together. So let's see what I've got in my scene 3 audio. So I've got 3. Oh, that's an external recording. I've got 2 relatively simple recordings. Mainly I've got this country park cafe thing going on, and I think I might just put that in there and make it quite quiet, and that should be enough with some looping room tone to finish off this final scene. So let's take a chunk of this and find a bit where we don't have anything too distinctive being too distracting. So clinks and clanks and beeps we want to watch out for. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to fade that in and push it back a little bit. And what I'll do is I'll fade these other 2 out. In fact, what I will do maybe is just stretch these 2 out on this side a little bit and make for a longer fade.
What about all your hard work?
Cool. And that I might just extend that fade a little bit. In fact, I might go in so I can actually see what I'm doing and not mess that up completely. Cool. So by default, obviously way too loud, so let's bring it down a little bit with the inspector. Still a little bit loud.
You've come too far to throw it all away.
Okay, that's good. There's a slight echoey quality in the background, and that blends quite nicely with this dialogue here, which remember is from a different take, one of the occasions in which we can do that. So I quite like how this all blends together.
Too far to throw it all away.
I want to check and see what we've got for room tone here. Okay, I'm going to take some room tone from this one, so let's find this in the media pool. Okay, there's a little bit of a clink there. And I'm going to take that down and use that as some room tone down here. So I can actually use both of these mono tracks, but I will have to fake the stereo. What I might be able to do
You've come too far to throw it all away.
is actually make it a proper stereo clip. So let's just take a step backwards and look at what I've done. So I'm going to delete the bottom one. I don't want that. However, this file is still part of an audio file that has 2 channels of audio, and by default it's set up to import as 2 mono channels. If I'm going to use both channels, I don't have to fake, or I don't necessarily have to fake the stereo by copying one channel into the right speaker. What I can do is I can just go back to clip attributes, and where it says format mono, I'm going to say stereo, but this time I'm going to leave my second one at embedded channel 2, and then I'm going to hit OK. And now, if I solo this and play it back, you see I've got some stereo room tone back there. That's because on this occasion I was completely fine with using both channels of audio. In the previous scene we had a lot of radio mic recordings where we got one radio mic and it had a lot of plastic rustling from the sweet bags, etc., and we didn't want to use those, hence why we did do quite a bit of stereo cheating in the previous scene, but this time not really necessary. So I'm going to put that down there, and I'm just going to extend these both out to the end of the scene and see how that goes. And I'll just get rid of the fade on that one. And let's see if we need a fade. I suspect so, but we will check. And let's also take the solo off that.
You've come too far to throw it all away.
Cool, I think that's fine for this scene, actually. I'm okay with that cut there, it's not too bad. In fact, what I might then do is take that fade away and put a 3 decibel fade here, actually, because this isn't really starting at the start of the scene. So if I put the crossfade out there and I stretch that out there, so then we do...
What about all your hard work? You've come too far to throw it all away.
Cool, that's nice. I think that works reasonably well. So, this is a pretty good basic kind of bit of audio work for our first project. Like I said, we're focusing on what we can do here, and this is primarily about giving you the foundation of working with audio in the edit page for Resolve. There's plenty more that could be done with this. I am not telling you that this is somehow a perfect sound mix, but like I've said a lot of times by now, that's not the goal for this exercise, because also I'm not teaching you to be audio specialists on this course. I just need to give you the essential bits of audio you need to function as an offline editor, and this is the first step in doing that. So we've done a lot of work, even though I like to kind of downplay this and say it's very basic. We have done a lot of work here, and if you've made it this far, well done, because editing any project is a big undertaking. I'm going to spot check a few little places and talk about extra things we could do if you want to take this further, and then we'll sign off and we're going to move on to hand over to other people in the pipeline, and then finally to titling and to final export. So let's just do a quick spot check. Now, one of the things I want to play around with some more is some of the stacked up room tone, and particularly here.
Come on, Wayne, make...
What I need to remember here, or what we need to remember here, is that we've increased the volume here. So we have also increased the volume of the background room tone. maybe having room tone that's audible at all here is a bad idea, because even if that's a lot quieter, it's still going to add up here. Maybe I actually want to take this right down and they fade out as this cut comes in. Maybe that's better.
Come on, Wayne, maintain the tempo. Let's make that flabby...
And maybe I want to try and fade this out if at all possible. So let's see what we can do. This little click here bugs me. So I'm going to blade that out. I'm going to hit B and I'm just going to cut that out. And then I'm going to bring that forwards a little bit more and extend it so I can get something that does actually fade in here. Now, because I've already got stuff up here, I want to be careful with the trim edit mode. I'm going to play it safe and stay working in select mode for this bit. Okay, and what I'm then going to do is I'm just going to fade this bit in here. Oops. So that I have a gentler fade in. And I might just want to cheat this bit of dialogue and checkerboard it again, maybe shift it up by 1. Because there's a very quiet room tone back there, but I still would like to give this a bit more space to kind of fade out. So let's just solo this and see what we got.
Come on, Wayne, maintain the tempo.
And then maybe just put a fade out there. And now let's see what we've got here, see if that's a little bit more palatable.
Come on, Wayne, maintain the tempo. Let's make that flabbiness fabulous.
So that's a little bit better. It's not quite as obvious. Maybe I could stretch this bit out and elongate the fade ever so slightly.
Come on, Wayne, maintain the tempo. Let's make that flabbiness fabulous.
So on the back end there, that's pretty good. I can still kind of hear this coming in, so that might take a little bit of extra finessing, but I'm more or less okay with this bit here. Now, the dialogue does disguise the background noise a little bit, and there always will be. If we're using exactly this room tone, this is going to always be louder than the room tone track that we have created down here. So unless we start using different recordings or some more sound design, we can never hide that completely with the current resources that we have. So I'm okay with that one. And the same logic more or less applies to some of the room tone issues further on.
Hi there.
I don't know you.
Sorry, it's Wayne.
Move along, mate.
No,
What I might be tempted to do here is take room tone from these takes, which is the louder room tone, and then put that underneath. We do then have the louder room tone present, but that does then make things more, I say significant. I was going to say significant, but that's the wrong word. It does then make things more unified. What we might do instead of having the constant room tone back here is use this to plug gaps in the dialogue. So maybe if I find this in the media pool. It's difficult because we don't have a lot of blank space there, and the location, well, we don't have any location recordings for this project. The client didn't provide those. So
please, I just need to keep going.
maybe that bit of audio and we just use the top track. And this time we again we have to cheat it because we only want one track out of this.
Sorry, it's Wayne.
Move along, mate.
No, I just want some.
Oh yeah, what am I doing? Stereo 1.
I don't know you.
Sorry, it's
And then rather than overlapping it, what we then do is, well, I want a little bit of an overlap and a fade here to help out these two. There's a big volume boost, which is why the background noise is so bad. They're 15, ouch, not ideal. And then we see if this little bit, just plugging this gap here, makes things a bit more consistent.
No, you.
sorry, it's Wayne.
Move along, mate.
And you see how that helps us and plugs out that little gap there. I don't like that I have to do that to make all of this cut together, but you do what you got to do in some cases, right? There's nothing too much else I could do here to fix this other than to make this louder background noise more consistent. So then we might end up having to do this elsewhere.
No, I just want some
These two are okay, but then this, I probably need to come in, fade this out and use this again. This time I'll stretch out the fade. And I can fade it into this clip here this time. That's probably a bit steep, and then and that just helps everything get a little bit more unified. Now obviously I'm putting these in the VFX tracks because I could put them down here in the third soundscape track, but I didn't zoom down that far enough to see it, so c'est la vie. But then we could go ahead and start plugging extra gaps with room tone here and see if we could get the whole thing to be as consistent as possible. But I'm happy with what we've done so far, and I'm happy with what we've covered. That's just, if you want to take it a little bit further, there's just more room tone work to do. I think in terms of broad sound design, all the whooshes, the clothes noises, they're pretty much there. You could, if you wanted to, go out and find more footstep noise and put some running noises, put some walking noises in. Maybe you could find a little jokey kind of angelic chorus and twinkly noise for when she reveals the sweets or something to kind of sell that joke. It's down to you should you choose to take this audio design exercise any further. So, as I've said before, we've now done a great deal of work on this project. It's always an undertaking, and we're done primarily with our picture and our audio work. We're now going to take a look at what we call handover, because the project is not finished with the editor. There's the real audio to go on next, VFX, grade, and titling before a final export. And what we are going to do next is take a look at handing our project over to users using different bits of software. So click on through to the next lecture once you're ready.